back to Local Decision and our coverage this summer of the candidates for Blaine City Council in the primary election. And today we're joined by candidate out of Ward 3, Amanda Matchett. Amanda, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Amanda Matchett. I have lived in Blaine about 5 years now. I've lived in Minnesota for over a decade, though. I'm a lawyer. I practice technology transactions for Workday. We do have an office in downtown Minneapolis. I have, served on a few different commissions, councils, things like that. I'm currently the treasurer for the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers. I've served on the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce as well as the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce. I was on the Compensation Council, which helps determine compensation for judges and, Attorney General in the state of Minnesota. And I'm also on the Iowa State Alumni Association Board of Directors. So, I stay busy with those sorts of things and, of course, working. And I just adopted a new dog and have been, dealing with those growing pains. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
Well, so what brought you to Blaine? Was it the choice to live here, or was it convenient for work? What brought you to Blaine 5 years ago?
It's not particularly convenient to work.
Right.
I moved here because my whole family lives here.
Okay.
So my sister lives here with her family. She works in the Anoka-Hennepin School District. My nephews are going to be in 1st and 4th grade at Sunrise, which is bursting at the seams right now.
Yes.
My parents are here, so they are now retired small business owners. So they owned a small business in Coon Rapids. And so, yeah, I just, when I was looking, it was time to buy a house, which, as you know, is also difficult at times, but I was able to find something that was close to them, and being close to them is really important to me. So, and then with the pandemic, I've been able to work from home, so it has been more convenient. So,
what is it about Blaine? What is it that you think draws people here to live and to work? What does Blaine have going for it?
I mean, I've lived in a few different suburbs, and Blaine has really impressed me. I think it has everything you need and want, from a city without being the big city, sort of, but also having all of the benefits of Minneapolis and St. Paul, just 20, 25 minutes away. But I also think there's a lot of people, our age who are starting their families, growing their families. As I said, the elementary school is already bursting at the seams, and that feels nice. It's a nice community to have kids, to have kids riding their bike around your neighborhood. I've really enjoyed that as well too. And I'm sure other suburbs have that too, but I just think Blaine is sort of that perfect combination of family and city, but being close to Minneapolis and St. Paul.
At the same time, do you feel like there are any opportunities or challenges, if you want to call them that, facing the city of Blaine that you think need to be addressed?
Of course. I think Blaine is a great place to live. And I think that the people who have let us have done a good job, but I think now is the time for some changes, for some, people my age and my generation. I'm an older millennial, I guess is what they call. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. So I think it's time that we have people of our generation who are leading our communities. We're the ones that are making up the communities. There's been a lot of talk about, who do you have the experience and things like that, and I have done certainly leadership roles in the community, but also I just care about the community. I think we all know that the infrastructure here needs improvement. Highway 65 has been on everyone's mind. It's dangerous. My dad actually is a school bus driver, so he's out on the roads every day taking care of kids, going to school. And we want those roads to be safe, not just for people who are going up north for vacation, but for all of our families who are driving those roads every single day. I know there's been a lot of plans, and we have, it's shovel ready, someone told me. But we do need some more pressure, and we need people who are going to be proactively pressuring the powers that be. The city can't always make the decisions, but we can certainly impact them, and we can certainly be the vocal leader and proactive leader for the community to get some of those things done.
You mentioned the current council, and just a couple of years ago, some real changes there. Of course, longtime Mayor Tom Ryan stepping down, and Tim now the mayor, but also a couple of new faces there. And then even this year, Jason Smith resigning, and Tom Newland stepping in. So it's evolving and changing. There's some other folks not running and things like that. So you see that as your opportunity to to maybe bring some of that perspective in there that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I was definitely raised with a heart for service, serving the community, serving your family, serving your friends. And I think right now, ever since the 2016 election, people are trying to decide how can they give back? How can they get involved? What can they do to make a difference? And when this opportunity came up, and I'm in Ward 3, and I just thought it was a great opportunity to find a way that I can give back. I've had a lot handed to me, or not handed to me, but given to me, and opportunities. And I just want to be able to make a difference in my community. And I do think there's some opportunities that we can make improvements with the right group of people in there making the right noise. So
let's go back to a couple of things you mentioned. First of all, infrastructure, and namely 65.
Yeah.
I don't think we can talk about anything in Blaine without talking about Highway 65.
Of course.
The funding is all over the place in terms of where it's going to come from. The state obviously in control of that corridor, but the city stepping up and saying, this is how we want these intersections to look. What about that is most striking to you, and where you see it going, or the opportunities you see there for a city leader to continue to be a part of that?
Well, I think too, so in 2020, I ran for the state house as well. And I had the opportunity to make a lot of relationships and form a lot of relationships. I've been endorsed by a couple of the state house reps. And I think a lot of it, as is in life, is relationship building. People don't necessarily realize it is that desperately needed and unsafe. My parents live at 99 and 65, where they're planning to do that overpass and that exchange. That's going to impact their day-to-day. Now, it needs to get done. Something needs to get done. But we also do need to consider the impacts of the people who are living here. And I think, when you're a state rep, you have the whole state to sort of worry about. But I'm representing Blaine. I have Blaine to worry about. I want to hear from my neighbors. And then I want to use the relationships that I've built to be able to say, hey, we actually really do need this in our community, and we need you to step up and fund this, because there's a lot of people from all over Minnesota that use 65 as well too, but we're the people who are here every single day. So that's where I think the city leadership could really make a difference, and I'm happy to take on that role.
I've also mentioned a couple of times now, specifically Sunrise Elementary, but I think that's the example of development and growth. It may not be unprecedented, but it's no less remarkable, the fact that school has only been open a few years now, and is already talking about expanding and moving students out of it to make room for others. That shows all the dirt that's being turned over there and all those houses being over there. What do you think about the rate of development in Blaine? There's benefits from growing in 10 years to 70,000 people in the 10th largest city in the state and the largest in the county. But what about development in Blaine? Is there something that you see needs to be different about it?
Well, I think we just need to have smart economic development that also prioritizes the people who already live here. So as we're building these new houses, of course, this is a great community. We can understand why people would want to move here, but we also need to consider how that impacts the people who already live here. Like I said, my nephews are going into 1st and 4th grade. My oldest nephew was one of the first classes to start at Sunrise, so it is new. My sister, like I said, works in the Anoka-Hennepin School District, so all of the schools are feeling that push. And so, having been on the Chamber of Commerce, in a couple different capacities, and having parents that are small business owners, I understand how economic development can really impact, positively the community and your families. But I think there's also a wise and accountable way we can do that to make sure that we're not all of a sudden having to build new elementary schools every 6 years. One of the issues that I'm particularly interested as well is in housing. As we've seen the housing develop, are we getting diverse housing options? And that concerns me as well. Again, my parents are retiring, and they live in a townhome here in Blaine right now, but I'd like to keep them in Blaine. So where are we going to move? What's the next step for them? As we have these houses that are all sort of these large houses, there should be some more, multifamily dwellings and things like that. We have the opportunity, for people that are moving here, but not everyone can necessarily afford the big houses that are being built in the brand new houses. So I think, the development is twofold. It's both the business and the housing that we just, like I said, we need to be strategic about and make sure it's going at a pace where the infrastructure as well can keep up.
Speaking of development, commercial development, the city is talking about plans in the Northtown Mall area, or also going to be introducing very soon some plans to redevelop the area around 105th over here, close to the National Sports Center and behind Invictus Brewing. Do you see those as opportunities? Have you looked into that at all, or studied or watched any of the meetings, or any of the information to see how the city is kind of approaching these
Yep.
really big opportunities
Yes.
that they want to get right?
Yeah, and I think they are great opportunities. I mean, if even national sports, the influx of folks that we have every year coming into our community is great. Again, I think that goes back to the infrastructure, is we need to be able to handle that infrastructure. So additional hotels, things like that, places to eat, where you're not going into a restaurant and a lot of places are short-staffed, and then all of a sudden you get an influx of 100 people. So we do need to develop those areas. Northtown is a great opportunity for development as well, and I think that's close enough even to national sports where they could work together to develop some partnerships as well there. But yeah, I'm excited about the opportunity. I will listen and hear folks out on what we think matters the most to what goes into all those areas. I think that right over by national sports is open either for sale or for lease right now. So there's going to be something going in there soon. And I think we need to be strategic again, like I said, with what goes in there, how quickly it goes in there, and also, how is that going to impact our tax dollars as well? We want the proceeds from these places to go back into Blaine, and that's another focus that's really important to me. Okay, we're going to deal with additional crowds and people at restaurants, and that's fine and wonderful and welcome. But how do we make sure that we reap the benefits of that as well? And I think, communicating that is really important, and understanding what do you actually want and need in the community, as opposed to what will make us the most money or have the most tourists, but what really is going to bring the most value to the community that we live in.
In this process, in running this summer for this seat, but also, as you mentioned a couple of years ago, running on the state level, I would imagine talking to people is a big part of that.
Yep.
What are some of the things that you learned through just these conversations and introducing yourself and listening to people? Is there anything specific that you picked up that you kind of took and ran, or anything like that?
I think the housing issue was one that I heard repeatedly, as well as a different environmental issues. So as we're growing, there's environmental aspects as well into play as we build homes and businesses, and all of that. I think one of the even I heard like HOAs sometimes are limiting solar panels that you can put into your homes and things like that. Well, how does we as a city support folks being able to do those things that are going to help the environment on their own? We don't want to be a hindrance to that. Even if we don't have a plan that fixes it for everyone, how can we support those who are trying to make those right choices in their community? So that was an interesting one that I had just learned about, as I've been running this time and talking to folks. Like I said, 65 is definitely a big one. Housing, schools, sort of the things that we've talked about are the the things I'm hearing from the community, but I'm certainly excited to hear what other issues folks have. And that's another thing. I think we need someone who's just available to listen and say, oh, that HOA thing is a new issue I haven't heard about. Come tell me those issues. We can't fix what we don't know.
Okay, finally here, as someone who's made the decision to come here and who's vested here through family and through other connections, where do you see, regardless of the election outcome, where do you see Blaine in 10 years?
I think Blaine is going to be the model suburb of the Twin Cities. I think it has the opportunity, like you said, it's growing so quickly, up to 70,000 people. I think it can be, a destination. Hey, like, what suburb do you want to live in? Blaine should be the top of mind. And I think it's getting there as well, because it's close, but it has, like I said, everything that you need. And so I want to make sure that we have leadership. Obviously, I hope that's me, but I hope no matter who our leaders are, they're committed to making this, one of the best suburbs in Minnesota, both safety, education-wise, and just a great place to live and work where you can, be successful and raise a great family.
Okay, Amanda Matchett, thank you for coming by today.
Thanks, Rusty. I appreciate the time.